Returning. Slomo. You see, continuing the little saga that was brought to mind in Returning. A return to the battlefield, the trenches. The trenches were the worst of all warfare in modern history. Those of us who suffered there are living good lives now. I've introduced you to a couple of them on the boardwalk. One of them, Marcus Schaefer. I just passed him. You saw it right before the clip came to an end because of battery failure. You got a good look at him. Small man right now, athletic, but definitely a kraut. Also, we got a good look at Schaefer again, huh? That big smile. He always had it, no matter how loud the explosions or how loud the machine gun fire, and there was a lot of it. He went crazy in a way with happiness. Schaefer was the kind of guy that everybody loved, and there goes again that one right there, Hagen. You see the crowd? They're not all big, but that guy is stronger than a nail, 20-penny nail. He can pick up weights that you would unimaginable when it's necessary. Anyway, he was a hardcore. He was a hardcore. As a matter of fact, they had that little Nazi business before Hitler with the swastika. There were a lot of our troops, even in those days, that wore swastika. You see, it goes back to things that they haven't told you about. There was a big movement to go back to the old days. The swastika, we wanted to jump back into the days of heroism. And there was maybe 1 in 100 of us, even at the time of the trenches, that were wearing the swastikas around our ankles or wrist. In my case, it was an ankle. It wasn't me, Slomo, but it was Hagen there, Hagener. Well, these guys didn't know who they were. They didn't know who they had been. They didn't know why they had such a good and pleasant life. And by the way, neither did the Lebanese man who we saw earlier today making a tape on killing Slomo. Interesting story. Born to the sound of gunfire in Lebanon, and suddenly a childhood of dodging bullets and explosions, he ends up on the boardwalk. How could that be? What had he done to deserve it? Well, Lebanon, some years ago, maybe 40, 45,
Swinging rhythm,
was in the same state that Syria is now. A lot of explosions, a lot of fighting, a lot of death. So a child could get used to it. If they came to America, for some reason they didn't seem to be frightened of the sound of someone pulling out a gun at a 7-Eleven store. They grew up with guns, explosions, death, sudden. They were used to it. They weren't frightened of it. And that's the kind of fella he was too, but we'll get back to him. He's living the good life here on the boardwalk like Slomo is. All these boys, because they've suffered in the last life, they suffered grievously.
I don't know how I'm gonna do it.
They suffered grievously, and now they've been rewarded. If you're here on the boardwalk, chances are you'd have to go to Slomo to find out who you used to be. You see, you can't remember any of this. A rare individual. That is, Slomo is the only one that I know of who can remember all the heroic deeds that these fellas did in the last more difficult life that they had. Now, some of them may have lived a short life in between, I'm not sure. There might be some WW2 boys and girls in here with the rest of them got in another life, because a bunch of them died right around 1918, 1919, right in there, right in the last part of World War I, and they got shot and died. And they're back. Now, I've recognized a bunch of them. My old platoon, you call it. It was a bunch of us that started out in the trenches, and believe it or not, almost all of us ended up in the trenches. 4 bloody years in the trenches. Now, you think that was pretty rare even in those days. So the ones I've introduced you to, Schaefer, Hagen, or Lips, that is Baumgartner, we call Lips, and that Tanzanian fella, yeah, that was it, dude. That was it. And me, of course. Yeah. Sometimes we had the sharpshooter with us. He was very enthusiastic at his post. So a lot of nights when we'd venture out into no man's land, using a Scarian as our guide, down Pucker could see in the, excuse my word language, he could see in the dark better than any of us. You see, when there was a big explosion, the light, he couldn't see for a while. He couldn't see for a while because of the blinding light, and then it was like you were in the dark. Except this guy had some sort of special visual prowess that seemed to be true in his race. He was a North African jungle man that we had learned to live with in the decades right before the Great Wars broke out. We had some of these boys in our troops, and this was one lucky thing for us because he saved our asses on that first night. We gave him full credit for being able to see in the dark when the rest of us had night blindness, all the flashes. What the hell? Let's see what this is.